is partially right. He actually admits these WNBA players want to kick the shit out of Caitlin Clark. He just admits it. But then you come down and he decides to blame her fans. You notice this? This is becoming a thing throughout all of women's basketball. Let's start blaming Caitlin Clark's fan base.
From the very beginning, Geno Auriemma, the legendary UConn coach with 11 national championships, openly acknowledged something that everyone has been avoiding for months. He admitted that WNBA players want to take shots at Caitlin Clark. His exact words were, "There are some personal animosities in the league where people are going to take a shot at Caitlin Clark unfairly." No question about that. At last, someone with genuine influence in women's basketball is saying what fans have been watching unfold in real time for months now. But this is where the story becomes more complicated, because in the very same breath that he admits the problem exists, he also shifts the focus toward who he believes is truly responsible. And spoiler alert, it is not the players throwing elbows and clotheslines.
Called a racist, or a homophobe, or a yada 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 yada, white supremacist. All the shit I hear all the time. I mean, hell, I'm used to it, but look, I know I'm going to catch that because I put myself out there. But everybody's catching that shit. All of her fans. All because she's straight and white.
What he's really saying deserves a closer look. According to that perspective, Caitlin Clark's fans are the problem. These are the people who showed up, bought tickets, watched games, boosted television ratings, helped drive a $2.2 billion media rights deal, and contributed to the league's new CBA. Yet somehow, those very fans are being portrayed as the issue. This has become a recurring pattern throughout the league, with coaches, players, and media members all pointing to Clark's fan base as the source of the tension. Instead of focusing on the flagrant fouls, the cheap shots, or the social media attacks, the spotlight shifts to the fans simply for supporting their favorite player and speaking up about what they believe they have witnessed with their own eyes. Now let's look at what actually happened this season. Kennedy Carter body-checking Clark away from the ball, resulting in a flagrant foul with no legitimate basketball play. Angel Reese delivering a clothesline across her head, not a basketball play. Alyssa Thomas striking her in the head during a timeout, not a basketball play. Marina Mabrey driving a forearm into her face. Diamond DeShields charging across the court into her like it was WWE. And Alyssa Smith catching Clark with an elbow to the jaw that left her bleeding.
And so that's okay? Wow, that's okay. I mean, this ain't basketball. This is UFC now. What are we doing? I have never seen so much justification for very clearly non-basketball plays. Alyssa Thomas, not a basketball play. Kennedy Carter, not a basketball play. Angel Reese, clothesline from hell, not a basketball play. Kennedy Carter, not a basketball.
That is where the conversation takes another turn. The explanation we continue hearing is that players want to kick her ass every minute of every day, and that somehow makes the situation understandable. Those were the words attributed to Geno Auriemma, not as approval of the behavior, but as an explanation that this is simply the reality and everyone should deal with it. But consider what that way of thinking is normalizing. We have never seen this level of targeted physical play directed at a single player in WNBA history. Diana Taurasi did not experience this as a rookie. Neither did Candace Parker, Breanna Stewart, Sue Bird, or Maya Moore. Yet when it involves Caitlin Clark, many argue it should simply be accepted as part of the game. The numbers tell their own story. Through her first 23 games, Clark was fouled more than any other guard in the league, averaging 7.1 fouls drawn per game. For comparison, the next closest guard averaged 4.8, a difference of roughly 48%. And these were not just routine fouls created by ordinary defensive pressure, but plays that many believed had little to do with the basketball itself.
And media members are going out there telling people, oh yeah, that's basketball plays. You're a damn liar. No, it's not. That's not a basketball play. That's some thug bullshit is what it is. let's come on down. Of course, all this, he's making comments because of the fist to the throat heard around the world.
What makes this part of the argument especially frustrating is that Geno Auriemma openly admits the problem exists. He acknowledges that players are targeting Caitlin Clark unfairly, even saying, "Anybody can deny it all they want because if I'm wrong, then there would be a lot more people coming to her defense." He recognizes what is happening and then adds, "Neither am I coming to her defense," explaining that he does not coach or play in the league. According to that reasoning, remaining silent is presented as acceptable while his former players and colleagues in women's basketball continue targeting a 22-year-old rookie. But one point is impossible to ignore. Geno Auriemma is far more than just a casual observer. He is one of the most influential figures in the history of women's basketball and has coached numerous players who are now in the WNBA, including Breanna Stewart, Diana Taurasi, Sue Bird, and Nafisa Collier, among many others. When he speaks, people across women's basketball pay close attention because his words carry significant influence, yet he chooses to use that platform not to defend a player he says is being targeted, but instead to criticize her fan base for caring so deeply.
What? If black players think Caitlin Clark is the reason they aren't getting marketing deals, she only came in the league in 2024. They had all these years to make all this money, and you know the reason nobody came to them? To have them market their goods and products? Well, number one, bad attitude's a big one. But number two, and most importantly, nobody watched this league. I mean, how the hell are you going to have somebody in a commercial when the whole nation's going to be like, who the f***?
At the center of his position is another major claim. The reason black players do not receive as many endorsement opportunities is supposedly because of Caitlin Clark. The reason white players are said to take harder hits in the WNBA is also blamed on Caitlin Clark. In this argument, she becomes the lightning rod for the league's racial tensions. But that is not what her fans have consistently been saying. No one in Clark's fan base is arguing that black players do not deserve endorsements or recognition. Instead, many fans are simply saying to stop delivering cheap shots to their favorite player and then defending those actions by claiming she receives too much attention. The endorsement argument also does not seem to follow that logic. Caitlin Clark entered the league in May 2024, while many of these players had years, and in some cases decades, to build their brands and secure major endorsement deals. According to the numbers presented, the 2023 WNBA Finals averaged just 728,000 viewers, while regular season games were drawing around 300,000 viewers on a good night. Based on that perspective, it is difficult to blame a rookie who is not even in the league yet for brands choosing not to invest in players that far fewer people were watching at the time.
Are upset because Caitlin Clark's actually got fans. He noted that Clark isn't to blame for this, and he doesn't believe this is why the personal animosities towards her exist. Instead, Auriemma seems to think that it's both natural for a top pick to be foul-hard in games, and that Clark is especially susceptible because other players resent her profile and status in pop culture. What's her profile, Geno? Geno. White and straight.
What this version of the story leaves out is equally important. Geno Auriemma does not mention that Caitlin Clark brought unprecedented attention to the entire league. The 2024 WNBA season saw viewership records shattered across the board, with opening weekend averaging more than 2 million viewers. The Indiana Fever consistently delivered the highest-rated broadcasts of the season. Whenever Clark played, audiences tuned in, and when she was absent, ratings reportedly fell by 40 to 60%. That surge in interest was expected to benefit everyone, and in several cases it did. Angel Reese secured a Reebok deal, Aya Wilson gained a higher public profile, and Sabrina Ionescu received more mainstream attention. However, instead of fully capitalizing on the growing audience and the wave of renewed interest in women's basketball, some players chose to focus their energy on resenting the person many believe attracted those new viewers in the first place. The argument continues that coaches like Geno Auriemma are attempting to frame that resentment as a broader discussion about race and media representation, when supporters of this viewpoint believe the issue is much more straightforward. They argue that some players were unhappy that a straight white woman became the face of the league and, rather than letting their performance on the court speak for itself, responded with cheap shots before defending themselves through social justice language after facing criticism.
Auriemma talking about Clark as he has received blowback in the past. Good chance he's about to receive some more blowback. Sports Illustrated. What the hell? Oh, shit. Well, I've got y'all, by the way. On a side note, Justine Passat has signed an offer deal with the Aces. For real. It looks like we're going to lose her. Right here, per the WNBA transaction page, the Aces tendered an offer to Fever developmental player Justine Passat. It's a lot like a practice squad in the NFL. The Fever...
This is the point where many believe Geno Auriemma's argument begins to break down. He says the situation should not become a national referendum, acknowledges that some players would love to kick her ass every day, and suggests that this is simply the reality. Yet, despite recognizing the issue, he stops short of using his considerable platform to say, maybe don't do that. Consider the position he holds. He coached Diana Taurasi, who has been one of the most outspoken critics of the attention Caitlin Clark receives. He also has long-standing relationships with coaches and players throughout the league. He could easily pick up the phone and tell his former players, this isn't a good look. You need to chill out. He could also appear on national television and say the level of physical play has crossed the line. He has that influence, but according to his own comments, he is not coming to Clark's defense. Even though he says he sees the problem and admits it is unfair, he chooses to remain silent, and instead of addressing the behavior directly, he redirects the criticism toward the fans who are understandably frustrated by what they believe they have been watching.
Right, because I think developmental salaries are different than regular salaries. I'm not sure about that. God, after all that CBA shit, you would think I'd remember that, but I immediately flushed it down the toilet at record speed. You don't want all that taking up brain matter.
Here's what the bigger picture actually looks like. The WNBA recently secured a $2.2 billion media rights deal over 11 years, increasing annual revenue from about $50 million to roughly $200 million. That's a 300% jump. The new CBA also brings major salary increases, better travel conditions, improved benefits, and chartered flights, while the league continues expanding with strong momentum. Much of that surge began in March 2024 when Caitlin Clark and Iowa faced South Carolina Gamecocks women's basketball in the national championship game. That matchup attracted 18.9 million viewers, becoming the most watched basketball game, men's or women's, in 5 years. The WNBA draft the following month drew 2.4 million viewers, up from about 500,000 the previous year. Nearly every major metric showed Clark's arrival sparked unprecedented interest in women's basketball. Yet instead of protecting that momentum and ensuring the player attracting so much attention had a positive experience, critics argue the league and many of its most influential voices either stayed silent while she was targeted or blamed her fans for pointing it out. They believe that is not only bad business, but also self-destructive. What makes Geno Auriemma's comments especially significant is that, after acknowledging the targeting is real, he also suggests the fans are part of the problem, giving others a reason to minimize what many believe has been happening. You've probably already seen how this discussion has spread across sports media. Reporters and analysts have pointed to Geno Auriemma's comments as evidence that the real issue is Caitlin Clark's fan base being too aggressive in defending her. The argument suggests that fans asking for protection from cheap shots, consistent flagrant foul calls, and public condemnation of obvious dirty plays are somehow overreacting. Critics describe this as classic blame shifting. Instead of focusing on the player being targeted or those committing the fouls, attention is redirected toward the fans, who are told to calm down and stop making everything about race. They also argue that race was not part of the conversation until some players and media members began using it to answer criticism of on-court behavior. Looking more closely at Geno's coaching history, he coached Diana Taurasi, who has questioned Clark's impact by saying the league was successful before she arrived. Breanna Stewart has also commented that Clark receives disproportionate attention, while Sue Bird has written that Clark's fans contribute to the problem. All three are Hall of Fame-level players who came through the same program under the same coach. Now, with Geno saying the targeting is real while also criticizing Clark's fan base, supporters of this viewpoint believe that message influences others throughout women's basketball. They also point to Dawn Staley, whom Geno references indirectly when discussing coaches whose players now compete in the WNBA. Players such as Aya Wilson and Aaliyah Boston came through Staley's program, reinforcing the idea that coaching connections can shape perspectives across the league. The culture built in college often carries into the professional game, and many believe that has influenced the atmosphere surrounding Caitlin Clark. Dawn Staley has generally taken a measured approach, but critics argue she has not been quick to publicly defend Clark. After the Kennedy Carter incident, Staley's response was described as, "That's basketball." When Angel Reese faced criticism, however, Staley publicly supported her. Supporters of this viewpoint argue that when Clark was repeatedly hit with elbows and forearms, there was far less public response. They believe this reflects the same pattern reinforced by Geno Auriemma's comments: acknowledge the problem, avoid holding anyone accountable, and shift attention toward the fans who are upset. Looking ahead, many see this as a much bigger issue than one player or one season. The WNBA has more financial backing and mainstream attention than ever before, creating a chance to build long-term interest beyond Clark's games. Critics argue that opportunity is being wasted by pushing away many of the new fans who recently arrived. From a casual viewer's perspective, they tune in expecting to watch a record-breaking rookie, only to see her take hard hits, body checks away from the ball, and clotheslines before hearing coaches, players, or media figures suggest that anyone questioning it has improper motives. Supporters of this argument ask how many times a fan will experience that before simply deciding to stop watching, believing that is exactly why some viewers are now tuning out. Although the Indiana Fever continue drawing strong television numbers because of Caitlin Clark's loyal fan base, many other games have reportedly returned to pre-Clark ratings. Critics argue the league had a chance to turn casual interest into lasting viewership, but is losing that opportunity by creating an environment where new fans feel unwelcome. They believe Geno Auriemma's comments capture that problem, suggesting he is more focused on defending the culture of women's basketball than expanding the sport. According to this viewpoint, he appears more concerned with protecting players' feelings than supporting the player many credit with driving new revenue, while explaining the targeting instead of urging it to stop. Supporters acknowledge Geno's 4 decades in women's basketball, the dynasty he built at UConn, and the strong relationships he has throughout the sport. They argue it is easier to criticize Clark's fan base than publicly challenge former players like Diana Taurasi or Breanna Stewart. However, they believe leadership means speaking out when something appears wrong, especially if someone with influence has the credibility to do so. They also argue Clark has avoided trash talk, disrespect, and showboating, simply playing at a high level while facing consequences they believe are unrelated to her behavior. Finally, supporters note that Geno is right about one point: this should not become a national debate about race. In their view, it should simply be about basketball, yet they argue it stops being just basketball when players take shots away from the ball and respected voices defend that behavior instead of condemning it. This is where the future of the WNBA will ultimately be decided. It's no longer just about one hard foul, one controversial game, or even one player. The league now stands at a crossroads. It can continue down a path where new fans feel pushed away, where its biggest star faces constant scrutiny and physical play without consistent accountability, and where the conversation keeps shifting away from the basketball itself. Or it can choose a different direction by enforcing the rules consistently, holding every player to the same standard, and creating an environment where games are decided by talent, execution, and competition instead of unnecessary controversy. Based on Geno Auriemma's comments and the criticism surrounding this season, many fans believe that change still has a long way to go. At the same time, the league has never had a bigger opportunity. Television audiences, sponsorships, and mainstream attention have reached levels that seemed impossible just a few years ago, and much of that momentum has centered around Caitlin Clark and the excitement she has brought to the game. Recent reports also indicate Clark is expected to return soon after missing time with a back injury, giving fans another major storyline to follow as the season continues. Whether you agree with every opinion or not, one thing is clear. Every WNBA game, every Caitlin Clark update, and every major league decision will remain under the spotlight. The next few weeks could shape not only the season, but the future direction of the league itself. As always, stay tuned for the latest WNBA news, breaking Caitlin Clark updates, and in-depth coverage of everything happening around the Indiana Fever. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the biggest stories as they happen.